Welcome back to episode 12 of the NC Squared Conspiracy Podcast. My name is Simon.
And I'm Chance.
We're going to get right into it.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about the top 5 Bermuda Triangle conspiracies and conspiracy theories and kind of just talking about it.
In general.
But before we get into that, I'd like to thank our patrons. They pay for our RSS hosting fees, which is why you are able to listen to this podcast right now, because it adds up. They pay for our beer, and they pay for our pizza, which we don't have this time because we didn't think very far ahead.
We thought ahead for the beer.
So we did. We did think ahead for the beer. If you're on our patron list, you probably saw the pictures from the beer trip. It was pretty fantastic, so thank you guys for that. Thanks to everybody that supported us thus far. Chance,
All right.
tell me about the Bermuda Triangle.
So
What is the Bermuda Triangle?
Starting off with a little bit of info on the Bermuda Triangle. It's a basically a 500,000 approximately square mileage triangle from the tip of Florida, around Miami or so, down to Puerto Rico, and then out to the Bermuda. And
The Bermuda?
the Bermuda.
To Bermuda?
Well, compared to Bermuda Triangle.
Okay. All right.
Basically, it's just a giant triangle of mystery and
A
confusion.
triangle of mystery. to just kind of round the whole thing off for those who are completely unknowledgeable on the subject, it is thought to be an area of paranormal activity.
Yep.
Extraordinary activity, even.
And even a lot of research has tried to come up with reasons why things happen there that
And some
don't
people
really-
think they've solved it, but
Yeah.
I prefer to ignore those people.
I don't ignore them. I say you found a logical reason, but that's not always the reason.
It's not always the reason. Well, we're going to talk about it.
A little bit.
Like I said, today we're going to talk about 5 just things about it. The title's Conspiracies. We're just talking about things about it because that's kind of what happened. But we already told people it was conspiracies on Facebook.
Well,
so,
some of them are
so
conspiracies.
we at least had to keep the title what it's supposed to be.
Well, at its core, conspiracy. These are conspiracies that we have in front of us.
That's true. We've also made it our goal to drink more because, for those who don't know, we don't talk about it enough. I realize because I've had people mention it to me that they're curious what we're drinking. Today, we're both drinking Square Mile ciders. It's the original from Square Mile. And I got to admit, you brought it over last time and I had it not fully chilled. Wasn't a big fan. Now that I've had it fully chilled,
It's good.
that's a good cider.
Yeah, it's a good cider. I liked it.
We always drink ciders on here, which is kind of funny, but like, it's just kind of what I like.
I think we're fans of ciders.
Yeah, I've actually almost already finished my first beer before we even started, so our resolution is off to a good start.
I'm at a quarter.
Yeah,
So we're there.
It's off to a good start, and our goal for next time is to actually have some pizza because it's about beer and pizza.
And conspiracies.
We haven't been talking about the beer or the pizza.
I know.
Just the
that.
conspiracies.
Well,
and it's going to be a lot funner if we talk about the beer and we talk about the pizza and the conspiracies.
Yeah, very true. And did you want to talk to him about our little intermission right now? Or
That's true. On that note, we've decided we're going to have a short intermission. You guys won't even notice it because we're just going to pause the recording. That way we can go out and we can grab another beer and we can come back.
Yeah.
And then to promote drinking more beer. And we'll do a little chit chat about what kind of beer we're drinking in the middle of the episode too, which I think will be fun for me because I'll be drinking.
That's the key, is that we'll actually be opening the beer.
We're going to open the beer, give our initial impressions, and let us know. If you don't like the fact that we're reviewing beers on our conspiracy channel, let us know. We don't have to go in depth with it, but we just want to give it a try because we think it sounds like fun.
It sounds like fun, and we're not going to be making the episode about the beer. It's just going to be like a little 1 or 2 minute of like, hey, what we're doing here. And then
Exactly.
it's going to tie into promotions later.
It will tie into promotions later.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not for the companies, for
Sorry.
you guys out
Hiccup.
there.
Yeah, not for the companies. Yeah, enough of that. Tell me the first interesting fact, conspiracy, etc. about the Bermuda Triangle.
Ooh, first interesting fact / conspiracy. All right, well, I'll start off with a really early bird one for us. Christopher Columbus actually notated when he was going to New York through the Bermuda Triangle that, up towards New York, that he ended up, him and his crew saw pillars of light raining down on the ocean. Not a big deal, probably meteors. people didn't really.
I mean, that's a big deal.
Well, I mean, like while they were out there,
yeah.
they saw these pillars of light. It was a lot of them, and it was like documented that he written on it. What's interesting about it is the fact that they lit up the sky, hit the ocean, and then, well, off past the horizon where they could see. But after that, they could see light for approximately a week from the area that it landed.
Really?
Yeah, that's the interesting part.
That is interesting. You do hear similar stories in the modern day.
Yep.
There was actually once a time, some people, if they're local to the area, might remember when a green light fell upon the Pacific Northwest and it lit up the sky for a few minutes after it had passed beyond the horizon.
Yep. Yeah.
I remember seeing videos of that. That was maybe back in 2010 or 12 or something.
Okay.
So modern day accounts. So this happened over the Bermuda Triangle is what you're saying.
Yeah, inside the Bermuda Triangle. And like I said, the interesting part of it is the fact that they could observe the light from it for like a week.
That is interesting.
So every night they would see the same light source in the distance kind of thing.
So what could it be? Aliens?
Yeah.
Meteors?
Go on now.
It could be anything. What do you think?
Honestly, I don't know. That one's a mystery to me. I think most of what...
That is a complete mystery.
I think what is the most alluring thing about the Bermuda Triangle is you can try to explain it off with theories and facts and like different things, and you're like, well, if we apply what happened here to this area, that kind of makes sense if you scale it up. But nothing's really 100% proven as far as I'm aware.
Sure.
There's a couple out there that they've kind of like have a pretty good idea that, yeah,
I would consider Christopher Columbus to be credible, though.
Credible, yes.
It was his. I mean, he was documenting.
He thought he was in
adventures.
India, but
Well, he didn't know where he was, but I mean, I don't think he was like, "Oh man, this is a really boring trip. I'm gonna have to write something cool in here."
Yeah.
So when I get back, like, they don't think it was a waste. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I saw pillars of light and
well,
stuff."
I don't think
You
it was
should
a
have been
waste
there.
when he showed up and claimed like a massive amount of like gold and riches and new world stuff.
Are you saying he's not credible?
I'm saying that he did his job well, which was convince a country to give him supplies, money, and time and crew to go where no one's ever gone before.
This is very true. Back to the pillars of light, though.
Interesting. I think
You
they're
don't know what
meteors.
it could be, but in your opinion,
In my opinion,
how would you justify such a thing?
if I was trying to think of a logical reason, if you had a meteor that entered the atmosphere and landed in the water that was made out of some type of material that reacted to a salt water to burn slowly, perhaps, but it would also have to have the ability to float for it to continuously let off that kind of light and stay at a surface level.
That's true. The pillars of light could easily be explained by many phenomena.
Yeah.
The lasting light afterwards,
That's the weird part.
that is the weird part. But I mean, that could be anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. What if, like, the full moon was
You
out?
got to think. Well,
I don't know.
I think they basically navigated for months on water. I think they knew when the moon was up.
Yeah, that's fair. They probably were in tune.
They
with-
basically used
if
this.
he wasn't in tune with that sort of thing, he probably shouldn't have been sailing
yeah,
the
at
ocean
that point,
blue.
you got to question his abilities if you can't tell what the moon is.
Okay. Does the story extend beyond that, or is that all he had to say?
That
about
was just his only notation about it in the book. And
it?
that
Over
was,
the Bermuda Triangle,
Yep.
pillars of light.
Yep.
That is a strange occurrence.
Which,
though.
by the way, at the time, it was not called the Bermuda Triangle. It was the Devil's Triangle.
Sure. And also,
So this has been known about for a long time. It was just a different name until recently.
this was also long before all the hype around like UFO sightings
Yeah.
and that sort of deal, because that's like 1900s sort of thing is when that started to become something that people would do for attention.
Oh, don't get me started on ancient aliens, sir.
We could talk about ancient alien. Well, I mean, the alien thing has been around for a long time, but it
I get
was
what you're saying.
not common to claim such a sighting just for attention.
Yeah, when he's already getting a ton of attention for the fact that he found a completely new landmass. So
Yeah.
I don't think he needs to then make up like some meteor.
Exactly. So I would say it's credible. I would say he
Yeah.
did see something unidentified over
Yeah.
the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah.
As far as the lasting light, I don't even know how to logically explain that.
I'm gonna go with a material that reacted with salt water.
Okay, that's good. this will probably come up multiple times as we go through the subjects here, but the methane gases
Oh, yeah.
that are released, for those who don't know, the really common logical, I'm doing air quotes with that,
Air quotes.
logical explanation to a lot of the things that happen in the area of the Bermuda Triangle is methane gas being released from the seabed, which scientists have claimed can potentially cripple a ship to the point of not even leaving any remains.
Yeah.
And they
Basically,
think even
instantly sink it.
potentially take aircraft out of the sky.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, it's a massive amount of methane. You're not
Sure.
getting the oxygen cycle you need through your engine. Not to mention, I think methane's lighter, so it may cause like a buoyancy issue.
A buoyancy issue. I could see that. I really could see that.
I mean, if you drop a couple 100 feet to a couple 1,000 feet randomly just because you no longer have that support from air.
Right. I don't know. As far as like fire igniting on the surface, is that a possibility? It's methane gas. It's
That's
certainly
actually a good
flammable.
point. I didn't even think about
I
that
don't know,
with
but
the media.
they would certainly recognize fire on the surface of the ocean. I'm sure he would have wrote something about that. But
Yeah, well, I think it was beyond the horizon a bit. They just saw the pillars of fire, and then they saw a light in the distance beyond the horizon that they couldn't explain,
right.
and they didn't know what its source was.
I've also seen stories in recent media about various bacterias and stuff that show up in waves that glow.
Oh, yeah.
But the horizon glowing, I don't know
Odd
about
for
that.
back then. There wasn't
That
like
is odd.
there wasn't like the lighting sources we have today. But
I gotta admit, you've stumped me right off the bat. I don't even know what to say about that.
that was an interesting one, just to start us off a little bit on it. But we'll go into probably just the weird parts of people disappearing.
Weird parts.
That's the main thing, and this is something that where I kind of disprove the methane gas in my opinion,
Okay.
and that's because we've had issues long before.
Is
and
this subject
after.
2, or are we still talking about subject
We'll jump
1?
into subject 2 now.
Okay.
Well, Christopher Columbus was just kind of like the start.
Hang on, I want to do subject 2.
Aw, you want to do it?
Yeah, we're gonna alternate.
Well, Christopher
You're
Columbus
stepping
was
on my game.
fine.
We're gonna go on to subject 2, which is mine.
All
by the
right,
way.
apparently it's Simon.
That's Simon's subject. This has always been interesting for me. I actually only figured out about this a while ago, but it turns out it actually extends far back into history.
Okay.
Before the death of Christ, even, is how far this story extends back.
Like written or
Yeah.
Okay.
Written accounts.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the Devil's Sea, or I heard you say the Devil
triangle.
The
Yeah,
Devil's
that's what it
Triangle.
was kind of known as.
Yeah, people have referred to the Bermuda Triangle as the Devil's Triangle. The Devil's Sea, also known as the Dragon's Triangle or the Pacific Bermuda Triangle, is an area almost directly opposite the side of Earth from the Bermuda Triangle, which is roughly 100 kilometers away from Tokyo, south of Tokyo, which is another triangle,
Of course.
which is odd to me, that has been described, written throughout history all the way back to apparently 1000 BC,
Okay.
with claims of ships being brought down in this area, anomalies happening, to the point where people had actually claimed that there was a dragon beneath the water that was bringing down ships in order for food. That was the story at the time. Because of the happenings, that was all that they could. That was all that they could conjure.
That's what they could process.
From what they had
yeah.
seen and heard, that's all that they could process at the time.
Yeah.
Interesting that it's on the opposite side of the Earth.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that the Bermuda Triangle has something to do with the magnetic poles, and I cannot believe I did not write it down. It is surpassing me at the moment, but there are 12, cannot remember the name, but it's areas where the Earth's magnetic field is unexpectedly strong.
Okay.
Do you remember what that's called?
I don't right offhand.
Okay, well, look that up,
All
because
right.
I'm going
As
to keep
you're-
talking about
as
it
you're
here.
gonna keep talking.
But there's multiple areas on the Earth where the magnetic field is unexpectedly strong. The Bermuda Triangle is one of them. There's multiple of them, and the Devil's Sea is another one of them. That is interesting to me. The fact that it is on the exact opposite side of the Earth from the Bermuda Triangle, though, as far as magnetic poles, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
in my mind, you know what I'm saying?
you always kind of have a positive, negative kind of aspect of things.
Exactly. But like I said, the stories originated back to 1000 BC. Apparently, it actually saved Kublai Khan's army.
Saved it?
2 separate accounts. Yes. Because invasions were happening and storms is what they're assuming. Storms actually wiped out 40,000 plus soldiers as well as many ships from invading armies on 2 separate accounts. They were attempting to attack Kublai Khan, which is why it became a very spiritual and paranormal thing for them. It almost became like a divine intervention sort of deal, because they figured that whatever powers was over this area of water was protecting them in one way or another.
Okay.
You can't find it?
No, it keeps talking about like.
No, we'll source it later.
Yeah, we'll source it later, but it keeps like whenever I try to do some look up on it, it's talking about the magnetic pole moving. So.
Vile vortices. That's what it's called. The vile vortices is what it's called. That's an area that has unexpected magnetic strength from the poles of the Earth.
Vile vortices.
Yeah, don't 100% quote me on that. Like I said, I've already downed my first beer and pretty quick. And we're going to need another one soon. But back to the story. 2 separate accounts. Armies are wiped out that are trying to invade Kublai Khan. That's why it became a spiritual and paranormal thing for them. And you got to put yourself in their shoes, right? Science, let's devolve science a while.
Yeah.
If 2 separate times massive armies were coming to invade you, and
who would win?
And over a specific portion of the ocean on their way, they were just completely wiped out either by storms or vortexes or whatever, you would feel a sense of divine intervention as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what are the odds?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
2 separate occasions in X amount of years.
exactly.
Because it's not like they were like, well, we're going to come back tomorrow. Like, once your army's wiped out, you kind of got to give it a couple years to build it back up.
Right.
So.
Now, there are stories of in this area of, and also, okay, let me clarify for a second. It is about 100 kilometers south of Tokyo, but there are stories of anomalies happening as far as 1,000 kilometers south. So their exact position of the Dragon's Triangle is not as pinpointed as the Bermuda Triangle.
Okay.
Just being 100% honest. People need to know.
So there's some debate about
There's some debate, but it seems that the majority of them and the tip of the triangle is occurring 100 kilometers south of Tokyo.
Okay.
There are stories of undersea volcanic action in the area that has caused islands to disappear and new islands to reappear in days' time.
That's pretty crazy.
I'm sure people have probably... There's time-lapse videos of volcanoes creating islands.
Yeah, probably.
People have probably... Let's post one of those. We should post one of those to Facebook.
Okay.
Okay. We'll take a note down that we're going to post that to Facebook if people haven't seen it. But that does happen. The idea that there was a dragon underneath the water that was taking down ships for food. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of an uneducated man on a ship at this point in time. And suddenly magma starts erupting from the ocean and takes your ship down. Maybe another ship sees this or something.
Yeah.
Also, dragons were present in folklore at the time.
Yeah.
That is a totally reasonable conclusion.
Reasonable.
Now, at this point in time, I do not believe that there is a dragon beneath the waters 100 kilometers south of Tokyo.
I want to.
I want to believe. I don't fully believe, but I would like to. But that seems like the logical explanation to me.
Yeah, I agree
As far as the dragons. Now, they have also had disappearances, which you mentioned briefly earlier. Out of line.
Yeah.
Still mentioned it.
Well,
still mentioned it.
Well, to be fair, Christopher Columbus was the lead-in to the disappearances, but we'll let it go.
We'll get there. We'll get there, maybe. But
So.
that seems the logical explanation to me. But I can't look past the fact that it is exactly opposite the side of the Earth of our Bermuda Triangle.
That's the cool part.
That backs the magnetic field thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't think either of us really put that down as a topic, but we should talk about the magnetic field thing for a second.
Okay.
What's the idea behind that?
So there's a couple of different ones. One, that the crust is thinner in that area, so our core creates a stronger magnetic field in an area where it's thinner crust, so more of it can leak through, basically. Because essentially, our core is creating that energy. It gets dissipated through layers and layers of, our world. And what they're saying is because it's a deep sea floor, that there's a lot of volcanic activity, it's thinner. So there's less resistance to magnetic fields leaving our core. Therefore, that's the general theory, I think, one of them. So
Okay.
That's one of the theories about like why we find these points of
Right.
magnetic energy that are kind of random.
And then the extension of that, you will find a lot of times in 100% of documentaries that you watch,
100%.
the skeptics will use that as explanations for planes disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? What was the major one?
Well, there was a few, but electric clouds and then magnetic interference with compasses. And
what was the fleet of planes that disappeared?
Flight 19.
Flight 19. That was the one where a whole...
Well, it was a whole squadron of fighters,
and then bombers or something.
Well, they were fighter planes.
Yeah.
I don't remember what exact plane, but then they disappeared off of radar just magically. So the way radar works is that you detect something in the sky. If it's following, you still can detect its movement in the sky. These were just blip out of nowhere. They would just disappear from an altitude of thousands of feet.
Yeah.
And just disappear.
And they were saying that they had lost communications with them prior, and then they didn't gain communication with them again.
For a little while, yeah.
Their instruments were malfunctioning in the cockpit, right?
Yep.
So the idea behind that is that this intense magnetic field is potentially what's causing that.
Potentially.
That is a believable concept in my mind. We all know how magnets affect computers.
Have you ever tried to wipe a hard drive with a magnet?
It's harder than people think.
It takes like the strongest earth magnet to wipe actual
data. You see
data.
the videos or like Breaking Bad where like they corrupt the computer from 20 feet away
with like
in the truck with the super magnet.
Yeah.
Far-fetched. I believe the Mythbusters, I think, did that one or someone.
Well, they tried it with the Earth magnet, the Earth magnet, the strongest they could ever get, and they still couldn't wipe the data.
They couldn't do it.
Yep, they had to actually physically damage the hard drive.
Right, and hard drives have gotten better. You can wipe a hard drive with a magnet. You can mess up like a processor with a magnet. And that sort of thing. But that's where the idea comes from. But flights do fly over the Bermuda Triangle on the regular.
On a regular.
It's not like...
Not only that, but they have shielding to protect that equipment.
Right. Exactly.
That's all airplanes have.
They don't not think about that.
Yeah, that's why you can use a cell phone on a plane. It back in like maybe the 20s, but they got onto that pretty quickly.
That's true.
Not the cell phone thing.
I think the magnetic fields is like the number one go-to for skeptics against any paranormal or alien-y happenings with the Bermuda Triangle. They seem to all default to it's the magnetic fields messing with stuff.
See, I don't believe that.
I don't really either because...
And to be fair, even if it does, you're still capable of flying in a pretty straight line.
Definitely. It makes sense, but it's very exaggerated, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It would be very exaggerated for that to happen, especially as often as it has happened, because there's multiple accounts throughout time. We should have got a total of how many accounts there are, but...
75 airplanes, 300 ships, and over 1,000 people.
Okay, well, someone's on top of the game, and I'm not. But that's a lot.
Yeah, that's the approximate amount. Those are the recorded disappearances.
There's a really common book that people refer to that supposedly debunks the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, yeah.
And basically he says that none of it ever happened.
Interesting.
And he
Isn't that a conspiracy in its own?
That is. He claims that, like with the flights, they had run out of fuel right? They'd run out of fuel, and also their instruments got obscured due to the magnetic fields, and also because they were out of fuel. You do still need fuel, in one way or another.
You can coast for a while.
You can coast, and like
at least until you get radio contact.
it's not like a car where if your engine dies suddenly, just everything goes out. It's like, I'm sure there's a separate power source for your radio.
well, that's exactly as the fuel is running the engines.
Right.
But you still have radio capabilities. You still have the ability to move your flaps and try to coast.
And he was saying that the planes went down. This is Flight 19 he was talking about. The planes went down because they ran out of fuel, and they were unfortunately never recovered. And that also just seems like a really far-fetched idea to me, because we are good at recovering wreckage for the most part.
Well, you want to know something else that's interesting about Flight 19?
Nope. Just kidding. Tell me. Let's hear it.
Hurts my feelings.
Let's hear it.
The rescue crew that was sent out to find him disappeared too.
That's right.
Yep.
I heard that in a documentary as well.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
These guys are trained to find
that
them.
starts getting alien-y,
Yeah.
if not government cover-up-y, in my opinion, because one set of planes disappear and they send out
a rescue crew.
It was boats.
No, it was one of the boat planes. It was supposed to fly out. Well, you know which one.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. But
they were set up to basically look for debris over their last known location, and then they disappeared.
Once, I like trying to connect aliens to anything.
Yeah.
Because I am a believer.
I'd snatch them up.
Once the team investigating the disappearance disappears,
that's when you raise questions.
That's when questions are raised.
Yeah.
And we're totally off subject here because we're still talking about the Dragon's Triangle. But we started talking about magnetic fields, and then we were talking about that. Back to the subject here. And I don't know how we got so far off track.
Because it's interesting. That's what
it is. It is interesting, and this is a good subject for me. This one has always been big in the back of my mind, and I wanted to do it, but a lot of people have done this subject. It's true, but we're doing it.
We are.
We've decided
we're currently doing it.
But I was talking about the magma coming up, taking down ships. That's believable to me.
Yeah, I could see that.
That fits in with their folklore suspiciously well.
Because magnetic fields wouldn't affect ships that don't use those instruments.
Exactly. Stories about the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Triangle extend way back, way further than any sort of computer navigation systems.
Yep.
But compasses, magnetic field.
True.
They use the poles.
No, actually, back in the day, they wouldn't use compasses. They did have a compass system later on, but they actually used the stars with the, that's how they would navigate.
Christopher Columbus didn't have a compass.
He did have a compass,
what a rhyme.
But a compass didn't matter at sea.
That rhyme could explain him landing in the wrong.
That would.
Christopher Columbus didn't have a compass.
I like it. No, but they navigated through the, I can't remember the name of it, but it's that little triangle-y thing that you adjust and you go off the North Star, and from there, that's how you would navigate. Sure. Compasses were usable, but they were also kind of a backup, I think, at the time. Okay. Don't quote me on it, but...
I won't.
Thank you.
To kind of wrap up that subject, and my completely biased, unprofessional, and not validated opinion.
That's all we do.
The whole Dragon's Triangle thing makes sense to me. If you believe in the Bermuda Triangle, even if you believe it has something to do with the magnetic poles, it is on the opposite side of the Earth from it. So it would make sense that it is affected in a similar way.
True.
Just saying.
Well, I agree.
I don't know.
And to be honest, everything in nature, for the most part, now, there's always exceptions to a certain degree, but for the most part, there's always a double to it.
This is true.
So
there's always a negative to counteract the positive.
Yeah.
In everything.
Push and pull.
Push and pull. Exactly.
So
all right. Subject number 3.
Subject number 3.
We got way off track.
We're getting back on track.
Subject 3.
So subject number 3 is more about the conspiracy along, and I'll explain a little towards the end. But I'll start off with the people that have disappeared, the recorded instances. Now, this is a couple handful over, like I said, 75 airplanes, 300 ships, thousands of people. But starting off is the Mary Celeste. That's probably the most popular one people know of. And if you don't know about it, don't feel bad. It's, it's a conspiracy thing.
I'm ashamed.
So it was a merchant ship with about a 10-person crew. It was sailed by Brigman, his wife, their child, and then 7 crew members. And it was transporting 17,000 barrels of raw alcohol. And it was supposed to be a couple. Yeah, I know. As we're talking about this,
Sweet job.
I'll take a
I want that
quick
guy's
sip.
job. All right.
So it obviously didn't make it to the port. It was on time when it was supposed to. Another British vessel eventually found the ship out floating with its sails at like half mast.
Okay.
So it looked clean. They approached the ship to see if they were in distress. No damage to the ship, but there was no crew members on board whatsoever. No sign of them leaving other than the lifeboat was missing. On top of that,
Lifeboat's missing.
Lifeboat was
Okay.
the only thing they knew that the crew wasn't there. Is the only thing they think was that they got on a lifeboat. But the thing is they didn't take any personal belongings. Everything that was in the inventory for personal belongings and cargo was all accounted for.
So they'd be in a hurry.
Yeah, that's a pretty big hurry to like leave back. Like
Sure.
they reported that all the baby's clothes and everything, like everything was like still there, even like food and stuff.
When was this?
This was back in 1872.
Okay.
So they thought pirates at first because there was a sword found on deck laying there. Just one sword. For no
Pirates.
They thought pirates originally, but nothing was stolen. There was no damage to the ship.
Be weird that they wouldn't take people's personal belongings.
And
being
the 17,000 like barrels of like alcohol. Like
You take the alcohol.
yeah, exactly.
Pirates like alcohol.
So all of that missing crew, perfectly intact, undisturbed ship. Again, the Ellen Austin came across an unidentified ship with no flags or markings of any kind. And it observed it for a couple days because they didn't want it to be a trap when they went in. So they observed it to see if they saw any movement or anything like that for a couple days. After they were pretty sure it was abandoned, they approached it, got on it. Same thing. All the crew's belongings, all of the supplies, all the food, everything was still there. Absolutely no sign of a struggle, no sign of the crew. They chalked it up to some supernatural thing. And then so the captain of the Ellen Austin then put in charge his first mate along with a couple handy crewmen to tow it back. So it was supposed to follow them back because it was in perfect order. It could sail just fine. On the way, a storm hit randomly, a storm that shouldn't have been there, according to their calculations. It shouldn't have been there. And they lost sight of the boat. They regained sight after the storm passed. The boat was in perfect condition, no crew. Completely missing, no sign of struggle.
Wait, the
no
boat
sign
that was
the boat that they picked up that was abandoned or had nobody on it. He put his like a portion of his own crew on it.
Oh, and those people.
And then that ship got like they lost sight of it during the storm randomly.
And then when it showed back
And
up
then when it
again.
showed back up, there was no crew. There was no sign of people getting knocked overboard or anything like that because there was no damage to the ship. There was no waterlog on the deck that showed that like they got hit by a rogue wave or something. There was no signs of that. Everything was still
You're
perfectly
talking
accounted for.
borderline paranormal or alien again.
Yeah. The story
I like.
is that he tried one more time, the captain of the Ellen Austin. Now, that's the confirmed version, but several of his crew members later recounted that they tried a second time and the crew went missing a second time. And then he drummed it up to being a cursed ship. And his crew refused to go on it anymore. So they left it out there just floating around for the, rest of eternity.
Yeah, like at that point, you're like, just leave that thing out there.
Yeah, so
Wow.
it was interesting. So again, the missing crew is what's like the conspiracy here.
Yeah, it happens 2 times, 3 times,
3
potentially.
times, and there's more. Those are just the 2 that I've gotten through.
Okay.
Like, there's been a lot of missing crews for no reason.
Oh, there's been plenty of missing crews, but on a singular ship,
Twice.
2 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
I mean,
What do you make of that?
you can't tell if it's aliens or I don't think it's aliens. Why would they back in the day with wooden ships and stuff? Like, why would they abduct people, let alone an entire crew worth of people? Like, it's odd.
Sure. Yeah.
That's so hard to explain.
That is hard to explain. At the time, you have to assume their search and rescue wasn't exactly on point.
True.
At the time. So, and it was a big storm.
Oh, that's the other thing is the second ship had all of its lifeboats and no sign of like them trying
So
to.
it would have been people getting thrown over. But in a storm, you wouldn't take a lifeboat.
Yeah, well, back then their lifeboats was like one singular boat,
Right.
like on the side kind of
So,
thing.
I don't know if you have an answer to this, because I certainly don't. Was a lifeboat at the time designed to hold the majority or all of the crew?
It depends.
Probably.
If you think
not
about
on like a merchant ship.
on a merchant ship, well, that merchant ship only had 10 crew.
That's fair.
Even your
you could
small,
have
yeah,
you could
even
fit
a
10 people in
small
a canoe
lifeboat,
if you
yeah.
in a hurry, like for sure.
Even a small lifeboat at that time would have held a crew of 10 pretty easily. So, and then the other one, it's, it is what it is.
I'm trying to think of the logical reason for them to take the lifeboat, because you said the alcohol was still on the ship.
Everything was
Why
like
would
down
pirates
to
not take alcohol?
down to the captain's journal was still on it.
So they in a hurry.
They're in a hurry.
They leave without the alcohol, so they in a hurry.
Yeah,
But then, like,
and food.
the sword. You said they thought it was a pirate's sword.
No, it was. They didn't. I haven't read anything about whose sword it was. It was just stated that there was one singular sword on the deck.
I wonder if it was a crew member's sword.
It could have been.
If it was a pirate's sword, they would have assumed it was pirates already.
Yeah.
There would be less because why would there be a pirate sword?
Yeah, but at the same time, why wouldn't they
Why
steal
wouldn't they have
anything else?
stolen
Can you
everything?
Yeah. Can you imagine the amount of money that you would get out of a
The
ship
amount
full of that?
Yeah, but the weight of the barrels of alcohol, there is the chance that like maybe they just couldn't take that, so they took whatever money they could get.
All a pirate would have to do
Gold.
is separate a portion of his team to then sail
Take
that
the
boat.
ship.
Yeah. You could sell the
Yeah.
boat. You could sell the cargo.
They didn't sink the ship and they didn't take it.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point.
I don't know a whole lot about pirates, but I've played pirate games.
That's important. You always take the ship.
That's true though. So like I
'Cause you can sell
I
it
wouldn't
off.
chalk that up to pirates.
No, I don't.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
I 100% don't.
Again, that's a totally uneducated opinion, but that doesn't make any sense to my uneducated mind.
Yeah.
So,
Those were two instances where
but
the
then
ships were
what do
found.
you make of that?
I don't know. Like, this is
That's a complete
I can
mystery.
usually have a logical thought process for things. This complete mystery for me. I don't even have an idea. Maybe, just maybe they were suffering from scurvy or something along those lines, and then they freaked out.
But the lifeboat.
They took the lifeboat and forgot to take food and stuff. Maybe in the
See, that's wild. That doesn't even make sense.
maybe in the middle of a storm they panicked and they got off the main ship that looked like it was about to capsize, and then they got capsized. And
I've got a far-fetched answer to the question.
Go ahead.
I've heard that if you strap an earth magnet to a pigeon's head, a homing pigeon's
That
head,
sounds
Or ju-
cruel.
we're getting there. Hang on. If you strap an earth magnet to a pigeon's head, it will fly in circles because it loses all sense of navigation.
Yeah.
I've heard this multiple times. Crazy magnetic fields, Bermuda Triangle.
If
They
it-
lose all sense of direction. They go a little crazy. They hit the lifeboat, don't take any food to head off, and then like they die.
That's true. I guess we could have magnetic fields that are strong enough to
But you
affect our
said
own brain
if they're
function.
using the stars, hopefully the magnetic field isn't affecting them.
Well, 1872, we were using compasses.
Yeah, okay. Well, Mr. History over here. If they're using compasses, then it doesn't
know.
have to mess with their head, it messes with their compass.
Exactly.
But that doesn't make sense for why they'd take the lifeboat. I just wanted to bring pigeons into this. They're the heart of all conspiracy.
I appreciate that. And we'll talk about pigeon conspiracy later.
Yeah, we'll get into that in another episode.
Another episode. So
You keep bringing up subjects I don't know what to say about. That doesn't, but that's kind of the part of it. There's so many,
that's what's the
there are so many occurrences involving the Bermuda Triangle. They're just totally unexplainable.
yeah, and that's what's tough about
The
it.
modern day ones are easy to explain.
A little bit.
Well, if you believe the magnetic field thing, because that explains almost every modern occurrence of a ship disappearing, other than or a plane disappearing, other than not ever finding them.
True.
That's weird to me.
Well, I'll run through these next ones really quick. Those were the two info-packed ones. In 1918, USS Cyclops reported in no issues, no anything, went straight through the Bermuda Triangle. And these are trained professionals who, as soon as they run into an issue, they will call Mayday for search and rescue.
What was that date again? Sorry, I'm not listening. What was the date again?
1918. I believe it was May.
So we've moved forward a bit.
A little bit. So no Mayday was given, and the ship and 309 crew members disappeared. That's where they try to claim methane gas did it.
Over 300.
Yeah, over 300 guys. And they try to claim methane gas can come up and snap a ship in half and sink it. But this is, like I said, these are trained professional crewmen who are at this was a USS Cyclops, so it had somebody at the radio 24/7.
Sure.
For basically just immediate emergency communication.
Radio? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then later on, well, actually much later, the more recent one is, well, to be fair, I'm going to skip just a second. With the USS Cyclops, later on, the Proteus and Nereus sailed through the same area that the Cyclops did. Same thing happened. They completely disappeared off the map. I don't have as much information about them, but that was back in 1941.
Okay.
So,
now the date on the last one is quite early in the 1900s.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, the radio was initially invented in 1895.
That sounds right.
Again, I could be mistaken.
I mean, if we're going with radio, as in
so how good are radios at the time?
At the time, they were pretty good because they were designed to bounce off of the atmosphere and come back down.
Right.
So you'd have massive receiver stations that were able to take that info in.
Okay.
So.
Okay. That's just more disappearances, and there's many.
Yeah. Like I said, the Proteus and Nereus, I think it was, in 1941. In 1945 was the Flight 19 and its rescue crew disappeared.
I said it earlier, at this time I have to assume search and rescue isn't exactly on point. Making a transatlantic voyage is a big deal.
It is.
Worth it because merchants, whatnot. It's worth it at the time, but I imagine if a ship goes missing at that time, probably not worth it to send another one out looking for them.
It's a pretty big deal, but you usually send search and rescue when
Navigation's still fairly primal.
Flight 19 was military, and they lost contact with them in the middle of a Mayday situation.
Anytime it's military, I give it a little bit more thought because, generally their technology is cutting edge at the time. They're contracted with the top companies at the time. That's what they do.
Lowest bidder, yeah.
Yeah. Well, but in all the commercials, they make it seem like it's the top of the line, like Transformers stuff.
True. But you're right.
You know what
you're
I mean,
right.
though.
They do get first dibs at that cutting edge stuff, and a lot of it is implemented. So
more disappearances.
Yep. In 1945, jumping up to 1991, a Grumman Cougar jet actually was flying through a slight amount of storm. It asked permission to increase altitude. So increase, not decrease. Increase altitude so it could get above the storm and fly in less rocky skies. It was approved. It climbed the whatever amount of feet it needed. I think it was 1,000 feet. It was confirmed that it got through the storm and it was above it. And then it disappeared off the radar with no Mayday call, no nothing.
When was that? I'm going to ask that every time.
1991.
That's the 90s.
Yeah.
So at this point, disappearances are absolutely an anomaly. You can't just chalk this up to they got off course and no one ever saw them again.
And like I said, these are trained professionals that, one, you can't just disappear off of radar by crashing your jet. Until you hit the ground, you're going to be on radar.
Right.
So this was they climbed up, they got to their cruising altitude, No Mayday called in, just disappeared off the radar for no reason. They attempted contact, couldn't contact them, no reason given. And like radar, they can detect your altitude. So it was confirmed that they were at the correct altitude.
You wouldn't be requesting an altitude change if they couldn't detect your altitude.
Exactly.
Just do it.
So like this was a situation where like they increased their altitude and then magically just disappeared off the face of the planet. So
Magically. Interesting.
So
that's just a short list of disappearances.
That's just a short one, and the most recent one is 2017, an MU-2B little two-propeller prop plane. Not the greatest one to go through Bermuda with.
What year was that? Just kidding. I heard you that time.
Oh God. So Jennifer Blumen, who was a CEO of a company, might be a conspiracy there, and Nathan Ulick was her pilot. They were flying. Yeah, obviously. They were flying at 24,000 feet, and then they disappeared from radar completely. Search and rescue searched the next day. They did find debris of what appeared to be wreckage from the plane, but they could never confirm that it came from that model of plane.
How do you not confirm?
That means they literally found probably like a wing.
It must have been like little to nothing.
A tip of a wing or something.
Yeah, but still, even then.
You got part numbers and stuff. Yeah, part numbers and stuff.
Even without part numbers, the curves of a piece of metal or something like that, the exact alloys. But like you said, conspiracy. Anytime
CEO
big companies
of a company.
are involved.
I can't remember what company she was a CEO of, but
I know.
I'll try to remember.
Maybe. You try to do that.
And then a really early one that surprised me, since I went kind of up, but this one was the most surprising to me, I think.
Okay.
Was in 1909, Joshua Slocum, who sailed around the world, one entire go around the world. So he was a pretty good sailor, one would say.
Must be.
Went to the Bermuda Triangle-ish area and then disappeared off the face of the earth. So, yeah, that's our last one. So
again, a credible guy.
Yeah.
He has sailed all the way around the earth.
He's notable for
unnotable. That's, if you look him up, I guarantee you that's the first thing it says. Yep. Undoubtedly has seen rough waters. So people talk about, that's another thing, and it's going to get a little bit off subject here again. But another really common explanation for any sort of happenings in the Bermuda Triangle is trade winds. Causing sporadic weather changes.
Yeah. Like rogue waves and stuff like that.
Rogue waves and also like sudden hurricanes, that sort of thing that could like take out ships.
And then they said something about updrafts of 100 miles an hour.
Whirlpools. I've even heard some people say whirlpools that could potentially rip a ship in half, which Mythbusters apparently proved could happen. They proved a whirlpool could rip a ship in half. They didn't prove that the trade winds could cause it. Seems a little far-fetched to me, but
there have been some staggering like evidence of whirlpools in the Bermuda Triangle.
I believe in the whirlpools. I don't believe in the trade winds causing them.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Magnetic fields, maybe. But anyhow, credible guy disappearing again in this oddly specific place. What year was that?
1909.
That time I actually meant it. And that's like, you couldn't chalk that up to the magnetic fields, I don't think.
I don't think so.
Vile vortices. No, I don't think you could chalk it up to that. I don't think the weather could necessarily explain that. I don't think the weather is quite that sporadic. It is sporadic, and they have proven that it is. But so sporadic that it causes conditions that they just couldn't make it through. Yeah. The dude sailed around the world.
Yep.
He has seen rough waters, no doubt.
Yep.
But what happened in the Bermuda Triangle was so rough that he just couldn't even do it. Took him out.
Yeah, apparently.
I mean, that's a conspiracy all on its own. How are these crazy weather changes happening?
How are these famous people dying in Bermuda all the time?
Oh, that's famous people, huh?
You remember that whole theory back in the day about artists always dying in plane crashes?
Right.
We should talk about that.
We could talk about that at one point. But you're right, though. Famous people disappearing in the Bermuda Triangle. Probably going to Atlantis.
Yep.
We'll talk about that.
We will.
Just kidding. Well, we'll kind of talk about that. But we are going to take a brief intermission. We're going to go have a beer. And we'll be right back. And we're back. Had to grab another beer. What are we drinking today?
We're drinking Laughing Dog Brewing Company Huckleberry Cream Ale.
I will say, I'll preface this. I'm not an ale guy. In fact, you'll hardly see me venturing outside of a cider because I'm a weenie.
I'll try a couple.
And I drink weenie beers. But I also want to use, I said I wanted to drink more on the episodes.
Yeah.
So I'm also going to use this as a
Taste
opportunity for exploration.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going, an ale. I've had ales I liked before.
Just let you know, it is made in Ponderay, Idaho.
Ponderay.
Ponderay.
Out in Ponderay. Right on. Well, let's give it the initial sip test.
Alrighty then.
Oh yeah, we're drinking out of frosted mugs.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's the correct way to drink an ale, but it's the coolest.
I don't care.
It's the coolest, and no one can doubt that. Let's give her a try.
Ooh, that's a light ale.
It is kind of light. What's the percentage on that?
Let's see here. Somewhere on the can it's in there, I'm sure. It's
probably on the front.
4%.
4? Okay, so it is a little light. Again, I'm not an ale guy. That's not bad, though.
But see,
It's
I'm
really
a huckleberry guy. I love it.
I'm a huckleberry guy, too. I love the huckleberry ciders, like every One Tree huckleberry cider and that sort of thing I've ever had. Really good. It's normally the aftertaste of a beer that gets me, which is why I don't venture outside of ciders and stuff. Not a bad beer.
Honestly, I like it. I can get the huckleberry flavor in there. It's light, but not overpowering.
Yeah.
And
it's definitely huckleberry, no doubt.
That's why I love the Pacific Northwest for it.
Feels a little woodsy afterwards, too. The very aftertaste of it. Let me get one more here.
I'm not a savant. I'm not going to come up with this is a dry or anything like that.
No, we're certainly not experts, but not a bad beer.
No, really not. I like it.
Right. Is it my
This is definitely a sipping kind of beer.
It's a sipping. It is. I'm not just gonna like slam a light ale.
Oh, I'm gonna slam it. Hold on now.
Okay. I'm ready. Go for it.
All right. While you're
I
talking
think
about
you gotta drive home.
your next subject, sir.
I'm home already.
Thanks.
Yeah. This subject was kind of a mistake on my part. But I had done so much research by the time I realized it was a mistake that it was too late. I just had to put it in here. And this was actually originally first mentioned to me because my cousin sent me a link. And the link was stating that scientists were baffled because we had found a crystal pyramid beneath the Bermuda Triangle.
Seems kind of out there.
It immediately seems out there. It seems like a spam post. I think the website was even kind of a spammy website, but I'm always willing to look into that. Okay. Apparently, this story started around 2012, and it has made multiple circulations online since then, as stories normally do. But the article stated that Dr. Maya Verla discovered a crystal pyramid 3 times the size of the Pyramid of Giza. 3 times the size of the Pyramid of Giza.
Fair enough.
At the bottom, in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to say if you're going to make up a story about an object you found at the bottom of the Bermuda Triangle, it's probably going to be a pyramid. But for those who can't do math in their head, that means that it is 2,268 feet wide at the base and over 1,400 feet tall. And it's made out of crystal. So that's a heck of a pyramid. And before I go on, what's your opinion on that? Just right off the bat. What do you think about a 2,200 plus foot wide, 1,400 foot tall, 3 times the size of the Pyramid of Giza pyramid at the base of the Bermuda Triangle? What could that possibly explain? Unprofessional opinion.
Unprofessional opinion.
Please. I'm dying.
All right, then. I will say that there are pyramids in almost every continent in the world, so why not in the ocean?
That is maybe the one backing idea behind it, is that we have officially found pyramids on every single continent of the planet.
To include the Arctic Circle.
They'll say we haven't found them in Antarctica.
They have like satellite images of what appears to be a pyramid. I'm going to say it's there.
We're going to do an episode on Antarctica later. But so initially that doesn't seem too far-fetched.
True.
Made out of crystal though.
Pretty far-fetched.
And this started back in 2012, and we haven't gone down there to investigate the Crystal Pyramid.
Takes money and time, man.
That's true, money and time. We all know the government's a slow process. You submit that form that says, hey, I found a pyramid this size, 3 times the size of the Pyramid of Giza, and it's made out of crystal, and it's underneath the Bermuda Triangle.
I guarantee the first guy's like, bull crap.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I'm putting this in the declined pile. So you got to do it a couple of times.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's impossible that this happened and that they submitted the forms and then maybe they just got lost in the mail, air quotes on there, or something. Not impossible. But I did later learn due to I feel bad. I did later learn due to further research that Dr. Meyer Verla is apparently not a real person at all. So nobody can find any information at all on Dr. Meyer Verla other than the article that is circulating online.
All right, boys and girls, this is where research really matters. Can't just believe everything you see on the internet. But
that's why I did the But like at this point I had already been looking into it for a while, and I was like, you know what, I better go ahead and include this. But in efforts to find something that wasn't 100% fake, I found something else. Oh wait, hang on. One more second before I move on from that. There was also reports in these articles saying that Dr. Meyer Verlog, that is, reported her findings at a press conference in the Bahamas. And at that conference, she revealed the exact coordinates, but she did not have any photographic proof. Again, that doesn't matter because she's not even a real person.
Wait,
so
where are these coordinates?
It doesn't matter. She's not a real person.
Yeah, but if the coordinates are real.
The conference never happened. There's no coordinates even.
I'm sad.
That's part of the story to make you believe, though. Yeah, like look it up. There's not even like a wiki page for this Meyer Verla. They didn't, like whoever made up the story didn't even go in depth enough to make a wiki page in case people tried to validate it.
That's a good.
Just saying. But in my notes, I put in all caps. But in the 1960s, there was a Dr. Ray Brown who claimed he had encountered and photographed such a structure. And he talked about it in a video interview shot for In Search Of. You ever see that show?
Yeah.
In Search Of. And he said he was looking for Spanish war galleons. And he said they found structures, ruins, and a great pyramid. The reason they found it is because a storm had recently happened. Okay. And the storm had cleared sand from the seabed that enabled them to see this sand that they had been working on clearing already rather unsuccessfully. But the storm and the moving currents cleared this sand and enabled him to see structures, ruins, and a great pyramid made out of crystal.
Out of crystal.
Out of crystal. So now we got 2 people, different occasions, saying that they have seen crystal pyramids at the base of the Bermuda Triangle.
That's interesting.
Rest my case. Must be true.
Must be true.
Once 2 people said it must be true.
Oh, God.
It gets worse, though. He stated that the storm that cleared the sands, this is...
Come on now. Let's do this.
These are his words. The storm that cleared the sands also ruined their camera gear.
Oh.
And by the time that they were able to return to land and then come back, the sands would have already covered it all up. So it wasn't even worth going back for the camera.
Wasn't worth going back trying.
We will post a link to the interview. He said this in the interview. He said there was absolutely no reason to even go back.
Wow. Alrighty then.
Because it would just be covered by the time he came back.
Yeah, there's just no reason, man. It's out there, man. It's out there.
So he never returned. He also claimed he reached this with standard scuba diving gear. It shows him jumping into the water with like the same gear that he used. I swear, I'm not 100% sure, but I think he was wearing a snorkel in the first one. So it's like standard scuba diving gear, which for those who don't know, generally you're not scuba diving deeper than 100 to 125 feet.
Yeah, unless you're doing deep stuff.
Well, even like it's generally recommended you don't go deeper than 130 feet scuba diving.
Well, yeah, because of the pressure.
The world record is 1,000 feet. So it is possible, but it is generally not recommended, and people do not venture beyond 130 feet. But he said that it was a 120-foot high crystal pyramid with only 90 feet of it showing, the rest being buried in sand.
Huh. How did he know that 90 feet of it was buried?
How would... Well, your math is a little off. 90 feet of it was 120 feet high, 90 feet of it was showing.
Oh, well then how does he
know that the 30 feet without digging? Because he had previously said that their efforts in digging in the sand were useless. But he knew that he knew. I'm just guessing. This is my educated guess this time.
Yeah, all right.
Aliens told him.
Oh, yeah.
That's not what he said, but I know the words that would leave his mouth if he were to tell us.
That's true.
Aliens told him.
That's how I'd do it.
That's all I gotta say. And now I'm going to give you a rough rendition of a story that he told in his journal that I forgot to copy down, and so I'm just gonna say it.
Go ahead.
He said that in scuba diving, his whole team was scuba diving, right? Because they're looking for these ships. That's why they're out there. They're like treasure hunters or something.
Yeah.
Those people exist. He got separated from the group. Immediately, that makes it incredibly easy to cover up any doubt, because people are like, well, I didn't see anything. Well, I got separated. You guys weren't there.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have seen anything because you weren't there. He's the only one that claims to have seen it. In getting separated, in the distance, he sees in the agua, he sees the outline of this great pyramid, as well as other structures.
Okay.
Now, the other people do claim to have seen these structures, but not the pyramid. The pyramid is his thing. He said he saw this pyramid, and then in scuba diving along the edge of the pyramid, he sees a doorway. I'm going to post a link to this because I know nobody's going to believe that this is actually a guy who, like, people believe him. But I'll post the link to, like, the journal or whatever. He sees the doorway, enters the doorway, as
of course,
as you do.
Why wouldn't you?
He said he was navigating through narrow, dark tunnels. It's so unbelievable. Like, come on, man. He said he had no flashlight.
Oh, but he was navigating.
Well, he was scuba diving in the depths, apparently at least 90 feet deep, because he said he could see 90 feet of the pyramid.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's ever been in the water.
It's not exactly at the surface of
the
water.
He also, in the same article, said that the water was murky, which is why no one else saw it. So the water's murky. He's already 90 feet under, and he has no flashlight. I believe this guy. Yeah. He entered the doorway and was navigating through dark tunnels until he emerged into a room in the center of this crystal pyramid. Remember, this pyramid is supposedly 3 times the size of the pyramid of Giza.
And made out of crystal.
They're made out of crystal, so he's made it a long ways. Once he made it into the room, he stated that he could see everything perfectly, though there was no obvious source of light. This immediately starts to sound like a D&D campaign.
I like that. Man, I need to play some D&D.
We do. He emerges into the room. He can see perfectly clear, but there is no obvious source of light. Coming from the ceiling is a rod of sort, and at the end of this rod is a gem, of which he tried to get loose. The gem was in like this brass hand enclosure. Mm-hmm. Tried to get this thing loose, but after numerous attempts, he couldn't. There was also another set of brass hands that was holding a crystal sphere, which he said just came right out when he grabbed it.
Uh-huh.
Like, the gem was like impossible to get out, but he said he grabbed the sphere and it just came right out. And then after getting the sphere, he returns. He says, I'm not kidding, as leaving the pyramid, he hears a faint voice telling him to never return.
All right.
I was like totally on board with this dude until I read this excerpt from his journal. And it was like, come on, man. A faint voice tells you to never return. And also, like, the sand somehow clears 90 feet worth of depth.
Yeah.
And you somehow knew, well, the voice probably told him, you somehow knew that there was another 30 feet worth of pyramid beneath that.
Yeah. And you found a door.
He found that, well, it was I think he said it was an opening, but he entered the opening regardless of the fact that ancient structure underwater, you're not concerned at all?
Without a flashlight.
He said he was surprised how clean. Oh, he said he was surprised how clean the surface of it was, and he said that in the room there was no algae or anything on the walls, which he found surprising. Which is surprising.
Yeah,
not as surprising as the light or the gem coming from the ceiling or the sphere that just came right out.
The lack of algae, that's what got him.
Exactly. So he returns. He goes back up. He shows the people this crystal sphere, and then they don't think it's worth it to go back down and check it out. They don't even have any cameras on them. By the time they return to shore to get their camera gear and come back, the 90 feet worth of sand will have returned.
Will have.
It will have, surely.
Well, he was told not to return.
Right, the voice.
To be fair, if I heard a voice that said, do not return, I'm not going back.
I'd have money signs in my eyeballs.
I would not. There was a alien voice that said, do not return after I just stole something. I'm thinking I'm going to get murdered if I go back.
Yeah, but like, you could at least tell other people.
Yeah.
And they could go back.
Well, he did.
You could get a picture or
He
something.
did tell everybody.
So he claimed he reached this at regular scuba diving gear.
Okay.
He located this. Yet he never returned to get any photo evidence because of the voice. That is his excuse for why he never returned, is the fact that the voice told him not to, and on top of that, even if he did return, somehow it would be buried again. And he would never be able to convince anybody to dig for it anyhow. But the crystal sphere is something you can actually view. They do like tours with exhibits where you can go and see this, as he calls it, Atlantean crystal sphere.
I wonder if they charge for that.
I'm sure they charge for that. That's what I would do.
The
money signs in the eyes. I told you. You charge people to look at that shit.
Yeah, true.
You do.
And it reminds me of the peddlers that like would go around from town to town and be like, snake oil, here's a snake oil.
Yeah, exactly. Like selling some crap to
or
someone
they'd be like,
for money.
I have the wolf man in here, and then it's $5 entrance, $5 entrance.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I just thought it was. He never returned even. He said that it just wasn't worth it to go back ever again because it was going to be buried. They'd never be able to find it again. They weren't able to dig through the sand in the first place, but the storm cleared it. It conveniently for them, the storm ruined their camera gear, so they didn't get any pictures of it. Nobody else of the crew backs his story because he got separated from the group because the waters were murky. He's the only one that saw it. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion.
All right, let's hear it.
I think the dude had been underwater a little too long, or maybe he had his oxygen mix like a little bit off.
Maybe.
That seems totally reasonable. I can see him like down there on like a coral reef, and he's like, whoa, man. It's a crystal pyramid.
You just don't know, man.
He found a glass ball somewhere. That probably didn't even happen. I'm thinking he made that up when he got home because nobody believed him. Because I've seen those glass balls. If you look at the picture, it's the size of a tennis ball. It's just a glass ball. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So, again, this doesn't prove anything. But I had done so much looking into this, and I had gathered so much information, and I was so sucked into it that I had to include it. So it's not a conspiracy. It's certainly not a fact. There's probably some people out there that believe it, because I see many comments on it. I think there's nothing to say. I just like, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where we can go with that
the
one.
whole story after hours of researching. The conclusion that it came to at the end when I read his journal excerpt was that he's totally uncredible.
Yeah.
But it was too late. Like I was doing some last minute researching and it was like, well, this is the one. I already chose this as the subject. So we're talking about it now.
Crystal pyramid under the sea.
And we can thank my cousin for sending me the initial link that launched this endeavor. I hope you all learned something from that.
I hope this was an experience.
Do your research
for you.
more than one day in advance.
God, that's hilarious. You had a little bit more than one day, though.
Yeah, but I did it all in.
Yeah.
This one. Yeah.
That's true.
I wanted to get more info, and because the amount of info I had led people to believe that it's true. And then when I found all this other info, I was like, I can't just leave it at that. That would be wrong. So that's subject number 4. You're drinking way faster than me. Again,
Well, you were talking. So
I am talking. I'll try and sip on it now. I'm also like a little hungry because we don't have any pizza. I know. Dang it. I'd be drinking way more if we had pizza.
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, you've got one more subject. Subject number 5.
Number 5.
Get us started here. I want to hear it.
So, an interesting thing that's happened over the Bermuda Triangle, and it's been covered in a couple different documentaries and things like that, is hexagonal-shaped clouds. Very interesting because it's not exactly a nature thing. So,
That's true.
straight lines are rare in nature. Not
these
impossible, I think.
The hexagonal clouds, too, they're not just stories. This is something you can actually see images of on Google Earth.
These are legitimate
etc.
satellite images of hexagonal clouds. And what they call them is like honeycomb clouds, is because it's a bunch of hexagonal ones. Now, they've discovered them in the Bermuda Triangle as well as the North Sea. The North Sea, they believe that they're caused by like what they call air bombs, which is a powerful downdraft that could basically overpower a ship or a plane.
Right.
And
I did a little bit of research on this one once you told me you were doing it, just out of curiosity, and I read a little bit about the air bombs.
Yeah, so it's a little interesting. It's like over 100-mile-an-hour winds
Yeah, they were
going
saying
straight down.
170 mile an hour plus winds from these air bombs.
Yeah, and they basically, it's a downdraft, so it's going straight down, so it creates this. The only issue I have with this explanation is the fact that they're hexagonal shaped.
Right.
I don't know.
Why would they not be circular?
Yeah, exactly. Why would air create a hexagonal shaped?
I thought the exact same thing when I looked it up because I was surprised that immediately upon looking up the hexagonal clouds, there was an immediate answer. There wasn't like very many disputes. I looked up the hexagonal clouds and immediately it was like air bombs.
But see, the thing
Air
is
bombs.
that even though a lot of experts agree that downdrafts are the cause for the North Sea version of the honeycomb clouds, they all agree as well that that is not the case with the Bermuda, because of the way the air flows in Bermuda Triangle, you don't have downdrafts like that capability that would create a hexagonal cloud.
Sure.
Which again, I don't believe would cause a hexagonal cloud.
No, that doesn't. It wouldn't cause a geometric shape at all.
What I do find interesting is people have tied that to the fact that these are actual like alien craft that are using a cloaking ability. The cloud is going around them, and you're seeing the outline of their ships.
Be a big ship.
Yeah, and it'd be a lot of them. But, or vice versa, I think there's also ones who say that it may be one big ship that uses a cloaking device. And what we're seeing is, again, the cloaking device, because it's hexagonal shape, would be a useful shape, I guess, for this.
Again, I like tying aliens into anything.
I do
so
too.
Immediately right off the bat, I choose to believe that.
I choose to believe that because also think about Saturn. It has that storm at the very top of Saturn that's hexagonal shaped, and no one can explain why, because it doesn't make sense with the way airflow works and stuff. You don't get the hexagonal shape out of things.
I've heard of that many a times in my looking into deep space endeavors. The hexagonal clouds or hexagonal clearings of clouds on Saturn. It's a common belief among conspiracy theorists, at least, that is some sort of alien base sort of thing. And that's the cloaking or whatever. Or a lot of people say that on Saturn, that's what's protecting them from the insane weather.
That's true, too. I mean, it'd be... I don't know how a hexagon would play into it, other than that's the shape they mathematical shape, basically.
Yeah, or like,
So...
But it
is rare to
easier
find.
to come up with a reason for why it would be a hexagonal shape for something that is artificial than it is to come up with a reason for why a naturally occurring perfect hexagon would appear.
I just don't think it would.
Rarely do you see a naturally occurring geometric shape
Very true.
like that.
Yeah, a complicated shape like that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, some could say it's what our eyes see versus what's actually there, but still.
Absolutely.
But still, like...
People could also say that we're basing this off of Google satellite imaging, and we know that they Photoshop a lot of that in.
True.
They're very forward about that. So, lazy editing?
I don't know.
I don't either.
If you were to build a camouflage cloaking system that would use a hexagonal panel similar to solar panels, which are,
Yeah.
you know, in that shape formation, the smaller ones. And
I'm
stuff.
sure they are for a reason.
I don't know what the reason is.
I don't know what the reason is, but they're all that shape.
But
so
if you
I'm
were
sure
to
there's
build a
reason.
structure or something that was capable of it in a larger scale, you'd bound to have glitches. If you're developing it to where it can create a realistic cloud formation, and then one of your panels goes out or suddenly switches off to where it's running a different script than another one, then you'd have this weird blue sky versus cloud sky.
Sure.
And
That's true.
And that would create a hexagon-shaped cloud because the remaining, 6 or whatever hexagons around it would be creating a cloud, and then you'd have this one blue one in the middle because it's actually transmitting the wrong information.
I know this is dumb, but in my head,
It can't be dumber than the crystal thing.
no, it couldn't. That movie that everyone hated. The Sky is Falling. Chicken Little.
Oh yeah,
Well, I think that was a DreamWorks movie or something like that.
Oh, it was a hexagon.
It was a hexagon.
Was.
I know it was a hexagon, and that for some reason that made me think of that.
That's funny. Well, a hexagon.
And it was artificial in Chicken Little, so I'm sure that must be the case.
Solved.
Problem solved. End of the episode. See you next time. That's it. Everyone hated on that movie. It turned out it was actually, it knew all along.
All along, apparently.
And I believed the whole time.
Did you?
I thought it was an all right movie. We'll talk about that in the post-podcast.
Yeah, we will. You'll have to finish up your beer in the post-podcast.
I will. On that note, we've
note.
already extended beyond our regular time, so we'll kind of start wrapping it up here. Bermuda Triangle / these vile vertices.
Just a mystery wrapped in an enigma, cloaked by...
It's the perfect storm, as one would say.
Yeah, that's a good...
Because mysteries, like you said, paired up with folklore, multiple occurrences.
Not only eyewitness, but actual physical evidence.
Yes. Even if some of the events were easy to describe, that doesn't or easy to make logic of.
Yeah.
That doesn't make logic for every other account.
Just because you can think of a reason it might be something doesn't mean that's the actual cause.
Sure. We live in a time where we like to think that we know everything that's going on around us.
True.
And that's vastly untrue. We're extremely unknowledgeable about how a lot of things work.
Oh, yeah?
That's just how it is. So it's not far-fetched in my mind at all, or even forward-thinking, to think that there is a spot on our planet that we just don't understand.
2.
2, 3. I think it said 12. There's 12 vile vertices or something like that, where these occurrences and magnetic field changes happen.
Yeah. And then 2 triangles.
2 triangles, exactly.
We need 3 and we'll have a party.
Maybe we should stop assuming that we know what's happening and realize that we don't. And maybe we should figure out why, for the betterment of mankind and for furthering of science.
I agree. Also, many black holes. What the heck, man?
Miniature black holes. That's probably what it is.
Yeah, micro black holes.
We'll talk about that in the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you just can't get enough of us, which is totally understandable, you can head over to our Patreon page. You can find us if you just type in NC2 Conspiracy Podcast. You'll find us all over.
Everywhere.
One of those links will be our Patreon page. Even if you're only donating $1 a month,
Oh my God, it helps out so much.
it helps out. It pays for things. On top of that, we do a podcast after the podcast every single time we record a podcast, just about. And that's free to anybody who donates any amount of money.
Yep.
So there's a bunch on there. If you haven't been donating thus far, there's multiple episodes on there you could go and listen to. We don't just talk about conspiracies. We don't talk about conspiracies much at all, actually. We just kind of chat
about the facts.
We
That's
chat
what we
about
talk
the
about.
show and where we want the show to go and where the show has come from, etc. Next topics, that sort of thing.
And overall, we're just joking around and having fun. I mean, one of our episoes was on octopi.
Octopi, exactly.
We talked
We
about
get out there.
octopi for 30 minutes.
Yeah, we did. So if Octopi interests you, find us over on Patreon. If this is your first time listening to an episode, we greatly appreciate it. If you don't know where all you can find us, our episodes get posted on Podbean. That's our RSS hosting web platform thing. It gets posted directly to Facebook. The links get posted to Twitter. They will update you on that. You can find us on iTunes, of course. You can find us on Google Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify. Listen notes. Castbox for our mobile users. If you want to send us a message, if you have any comments or concerns, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Patreon. You don't necessarily have to donate, just to send us a message. Find us on Twitter, whatever. Wherever you find us, shoot us a message. We'll respond.
And if you're going to leave a rating, leave a comment.
Leave a comment.
Let us know what you really think.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Have a good one.